Hello, everybody. Welcome into the championship week edition of Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. We are truly, really excited about not just Georgia, Alabama in the SEC championship for this game, getting a chance to pick all the other conference title games as well. And I do mean all the other conference title games, at least at the FBS level. We'll do those for you here today, and really excited about that. Dogs against Alabama. Obviously, the playoff field set with everything else that's going to unfold over the course of the time together here for you there as well. It's all brought to you by our friends at R.S. Andrews, of course, the ones you turn to for your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electric needs. We have fun here talking about football, but when it comes to stuff in your house, that's more serious. And with the heating systems, obviously this time of year, many of you are worried about yours. Maybe you've been told that you need a new heating system. Well, why don't you do this? Why don't you get the R.S. Andrews second opinion on that? Find out if the folks at R.S. Andrews can actually breathe new life into that unit that you have. They can restore it back to factory fresh specs, get it all tuned up for the winter and the holiday season that it's on its way. So make sure you find them online at rsandrews.com, and they'll take care of you for all of that. Story after story, they've been delivering a smile, and they can deliver a smile for you as well. So make sure you check them out today. Of course, hopefully you've been checking us out for Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews all season long. But if you haven't, if this is your first time joining us, let me give you a little bit of a reminder about how things go. In just a moment, I will make my picks for the upcoming week's worth of games. The entire Dog Nation team will there as well. Mike Griffith, Jeff Sintel, Connor Riley. We'll hear from Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers. Then after that, a consensus is formed, and we invite you playing along at home and our buddy Dari Payro from R.S. Andrews to decide if they want to join that consensus, or as we say around here, if they want to go with the flow and be a part of that pick, or if Dari wants to go the other direction. And oftentimes with us and our picks, maybe going the other direction is the right thing to do. But either way, that's the way the game works here. This has been going on for the entirety of the season. We've got quite a race near the top. In fact, let's get an update on those standings right now before we make our picks here for this week. Connor Riley still at the top of the list right now, but 5-6 a week ago, but still very impressive, 60-51 on the year. I am, a game behind that right now after a 6-5 1 week. A week ago, we all pushed on the Florida State game, but a winning record at 6-5-1 last week, winning on the season there as well at 59-52. Dari Payro also putting a winning campaign together, 57-54 after a 6-5 week. Mike Griffith got back off the schneid and back to his winning ways, 7-4 a week ago, 55-56 on the year. Jeff Sintel 5-6 a week ago, 49-62 on the campaign. So if you're following some of us here, you're making a little bit of money yourself as you make those picks here for this upcoming weekend. But a lot to look at, and of course, anyone's game here in the final days as we turn our attention to Championship Saturday. Dari, I do this very frequently before we make our picks. I'm going to ask you once again, looking at this championship slate, some of these teams you may have seen a lot. For some fans, maybe these also involve games that you haven't seen quite as much. What do you think about the upcoming week here and the games that are about to be played?
Absolutely love the games this week. Feeling really good. I got my hat on.
You
Christmas
sure do.
is coming early. I'm giving out winners on this segment this week. Feeling really strong. Probably I feel like I'm going to hit 80-90% win percentage this week. Kind of shocking with Jeff's stats right there. I think he had 1 week where he was 8-0.
Yeah.
If you take away that week, it's those numbers pretty crazy.
Darn, spiking the football here. I've never seen somebody with a Santa Claus hat drop it so cruelly like that, but nonetheless, pretty impressive. All right, hopefully the Georgia Bulldogs, for Dog fans, they are going to be impressive on Saturday against Alabama in the SEC Championship. They certainly find themselves in kind of a historic situation. Been a long time since Alabama was a point spread underdog. I won't talk for now what happened the last time Bama was a point spread underdog, but Georgia is a 6.5-point favorite hosting Alabama on Saturday in the SEC Championship. Georgia, of course, undefeated, long since clinched the SEC East. Bama earned its way into this title game 2 weeks ago with a win against Arkansas, but also went down to the wire multiple overtimes against Auburn last week, whereas Georgia had a rocking chair cover, easy win against the in-state rival, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Number 6.5, Bama, the rare position of being an underdog here. Mike Griffith on SEC Championship. Look ahead. Go ahead and start us off.
Yeah, I've had the best record 2 out of the last 3 weeks, so I do feel good about this pick here.
I like that.
And yeah, well, it's good. If you want to make some money, you got to know who to listen to. When I'm hot, I'm hot. I can tell you. I like Georgia in this game. It's been 92 games since Alabama was an underdog, and it was 2015 Georgia. And then you had to go back 72 games before that. I don't think that Alabama has the horses to beat Georgia. I just don't. I think the Brian Robinson injury for me, that was the final shot. Alabama would have needed to run the ball effectively. I don't think they can do that. I think there's a big drop off at running back. Kirby Smart has a loaded roster. He's got all the talent. He's got all the options. Stetson Bennett is coming off his best game of the season. Beautiful touch pass to Jermaine Burton. And right now, number 19 looks as good as any target in the country. So I'm going to take Georgia and give the points.
So Mike Griffith likes the Georgia Bulldogs to get things going there. Jeff Sintel, number 6.5. What do you think?
Hey, Dari, man, I want to come back to you on that one point. I want to say this. If I would have gotten the over-under right on Georgia most of the year, probably be 500 right now, because that's the one I'm banana peeling on that one. Here's something I'm not banana peeling on, friends. That is Georgia, Alabama. I subscribe to the Reese Davis theory. I really do. I think the time when Georgia finally catches Alabama, they're going to knock them out. It's not going to be one of those things where you really look at the finish line. I think Georgia's going to win this probably by about 7 to 11 points. I think it's going to be above the line. I think it's going to be a double-digit victory. Main thing is Georgia's key players are all in the junior, senior, or super senior class. Alabama's most talented guys are freshmen or sophomores making a bunch of mistakes even after game, going into game 13 now. So give me the dogs to cover.
So Jeff Sintel on the side of the Georgia Bulldogs there too. Connor Riley, what do you think?
You put these two teams on a neutral field, no logos. Georgia's clearly the better team. However, I'm a coward. I'm going to take Alabama here plus the 6.5. If I'm right, I'm right. That adds to my season-long lead. If I'm wrong, that means Georgia wins by more than a touchdown, which has only happened once against Alabama, dating back to, I want to say, like 2012 or something along the lines of that. The national title game against Clemson was the only time they lost by more than a touchdown. So give me Alabama here, plus 6.5. Totally recognize it's a coward play, but smart money makes money.
So that is Connor on the side of the Alabama Crimson Tide there, plus the points. One small correction, Auburn did beat Alabama 26-14 in 2017, so you're talking about 2 double-digit wins against Alabama going back all those years that Connor Riley just mentioned there. And as Mike Griffith pointed out, you got to go back to October 3rd, 2015. By the way, I should also say the Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers on the side of the Georgia Bulldogs here, no real surprise there, 86% like Georgia minus the 6.5 points. So a lot of confidence going into this SEC title game. So a lot of love for the Dogs here thus far. October 3rd, 2015, though, that's the time you have to go back to. Last time that Alabama was a point spread underdog, and it's unpleasant to remember that game coming against the Georgia Bulldogs in Sanford Stadium. Dogs 1-point favorite there that day, did lose the game 38-10. Maybe more significantly, though, even though it's now more than a decade in the past, as a 5-point underdog in the SEC title game in 2009, same game that'll be played on Saturday, if not a different stadium back there in the old Georgia Dome. Bama beat Tim Tebow, the Florida Gators, 32-13 as 5-point underdogs there as well. And that's about it in any kind of modern sense when it comes to Alabama being an underdog. I'm not going to lie to you here. There's no chance I'm picking against Georgia. And in a point spread this narrow, I'm also not going to play the game, although it could end up being correct, of I like Georgia to win, Alabama plus the points. I'm not going to do that. So I'm rubber stamping my pick here on this. I'm taking Georgia minus the points, but it's really more because I want to. I do expect this game to be close because, as Connor pointed out and has been pointed out, many times, when Alabama loses, it typically is close. I think 6.5 is actually kind of a lot of points here. But just for the sake of the vibe going into the game, I'm going to take Georgia minus the points. That puts a lot of love here on the Georgia Bulldogs with a pretty sizable number based on what typically happens for Alabama. Dar, you want to go with the flow here and take the Georgia Bulldogs?
Oh, tasty beverage, yes.
Going back to beverages.
This is a long time coming. I'm taking Georgia. This is one of my strongest plays of the week. I absolutely love Georgia to dismantle Alabama this week. Payment is due. They are coming. They're going to get it done in a fashion that's long overdue, that Nick Saban hasn't experienced at Alabama in a very, very long time. That's what's coming this Saturday. It's happening. I thought I was the only one bringing gifts, but obviously Connor threw a gift to us by spotting us the first pick of the week.
Strong pick there from Dari Payro. We're off and running. I love that level of confidence in Saturday. In fact, I may borrow some of that confidence as you get ready to head towards the SEC championship game. We'll turn our attention back to the Dogs here in a moment, over, under, and the expected total for the game. That'll conclude our day here today on Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. Before that, though, let's take a trip around the rest of the conference title games here, starting with games played on Friday night. Conference USA Championship game. This one airs on the CBS Sports Network, so it's deep cable. You'll have to work hard to find it. But nonetheless, it is a game pitting Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers, against the Roadrunners of UTSA. And Texas San Antonio finds himself a 2-point underdog in this spot, despite the fact they spent a good portion of the year ranked in the top 25. So Conference USA title game, Hilltoppers and Roadrunners. UTSA getting 2 points here on this one. Mike Griffith, what do you think?
Yeah, UTSA was one of the last 3 unbeatens, but obviously they've fallen. They'll try to get back up in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. That would lead you to think, with this being a quasi-home game, that you might want to take the Roadrunners. But beep, beep, wait a second. Western Kentucky has won 7 straight since they fell to UTSA back on October 9th by a 52-46 count. I'm going to take the Hilltoppers and give 2 points to UTSA.
So there you go. Mike Griffith on the side of Western Kentucky. Well, what do you think here, Jeff Sintel, Conference USA on a Friday night?
Goodness gracious, is this a go with the flow first? We've got Roadrunners, we've got North Texas, we've got Western Kentucky, we've got deep cable, as you mentioned. I could throw in the fact that Western Kentucky has played much better. Former Georgia Bulldog Jaden Hunter is on that squad this year since they picked up the offensive coordinator from Houston Baptist, of all places.
That's right.
Here's what I know. I know Western Kentucky does have 7-game winning streak. This line is not very intimidating to me when you have the former offensive coordinator of Houston Baptist on your side. Give me Western Kentucky to cover this number.
So a lot of love for the Hilltoppers here right now. Connor Riley, you want to join in on that?
Yeah, Bailey Zappi, Western Kentucky's quarterback, one of the top quarterbacks in the country this season, a guy who's going to hear his name called in the NFL draft this upcoming year. UTSA, one of the luckiest teams in the country in terms of metrics this year, creating turnovers, things along the lines of that. It seems like their luck kind of ran out there at the end. They were very lucky to beat a UAB team earlier in the year that Georgia handled pretty easily. So give me the Hilltoppers here. I'm worried that I'm on the side of 2 guys that have losing records coming into this week, but I like what Western Kentucky is doing here as of late.
Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, they disagree. 55% on the side of Texas San Antonio, likely influenced by the fact they've seen the Roadrunners in the top 25 a lot this season. However, I do think Western Kentucky is a pretty strong play here. As other folks on the panel have mentioned, after a little bit of a slow start, this season, Western Kentucky really cranks it up in a big way. The games they've lost have all been close, and for the most part, they've been to FBS level type competition. 3 points at Army, 2 points at Indiana, 17 points at Michigan State, and then as Mike Griffith mentioned, there was a 6-point loss a little earlier this year to Texas San Antonio. But as Connor pointed out, Bailey Zapp and this Hilltoppers offense, you could make a case that relative to competition, they've been the most explosive in the entire country. Zapp leads the nation in passing yards per game, and the Hilltoppers are second in the country in points scored per game there as well. It's the kind of fun team you kind of want to be on their side in a championship game situation, especially for the folks who are at home on a Friday night and obviously watching us on Peachtree TV for high school football, but maybe checking this from time to time during the commercial breaks there as well. It's just the kind of team that's kind of fun to watch and kind of fun to back. And so I'll be on the side of Western Kentucky here, and that puts the flow on the side of Western Kentucky as well. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Hilltoppers?
I am. I mean, when you look at the stats, UTSA has a top offense, decent defense, a top run defense. And Western Kentucky probably has one of the worst pass defenses in the country. So all signs point to the Roadrunners winning this at their home game in the Alamo Dome. But the Hilltoppers, I think, just have too much offense and it's probably going to get a score late to win.
So that is the first game taking place on a Friday night. A little bit bigger level of competition, at least relatively speaking, in the Pac-12 title game. Traditional home on Friday night and traditional spot. Santa Clara at the 49ers Stadium here for this. Sees a rematch between Oregon and Utah. Of course, we all remember how this game went a couple of weeks ago for the Ducks, seeing their college football playoff hopes come to a crashing end at Rice-Eccles Stadium there in Salt Lake City. And now in the rematch, you see a scenario where Utah once again finds itself as a 3-point favorite, this time in the neutral venue there of Santa Clara, California. So, Mike Griffith, back to you for the Pac-12 title game. Utes as a 3-point favorite of the Ducks.
Yeah, it's amazing that the Ducks lost 38-7 just a few weeks ago. to the Utes. I don't think things can change that quickly for Oregon. I don't know if Phil Knight's got any special cleats for the Nike-sponsored school, but we have realized that the Ducks are not all they're quacked up to be, and I will once again take Utah to win. I'll use the same bad pun, but I will pick a different team and take Utah giving 3 points to Oregon.
Some people don't like puns. I kind of do, and I don't mind that one there. Jeff Sintel, what do you think?
Well, first of all, Mike's background makes me think of a duck hunt. Speaking of duck hunts, Utah had the most successful duck hunt 3 weeks ago since the days of the Nintendo Entertainment System Classic Duck Hunt, the Light Zapper, and everything else like that. Everybody knows the laughing dog. I'm sure Mike's laughing right now like that dog. Here's what I know. Oregon could not stop the Utes from running the ball. I think the more physical, the more pounding, the more complete team are the Utes. And I don't think we're going to see a market correction by 31 points on a neutral field, yada, 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 whatever else. Lay the points. Give me Utah, light zapper type win for that program.
Connor Riley, how about you? A lot of love for Utah here right now.
Yeah, I was the only person smart enough to pick Utah when they played Oregon a few weeks ago, and I think I'm going to ride with them again here. They just went up and down the field on Oregon in that game. They did have a punt return in that game for a touchdown literally right before halftime. So I think this game might actually be a little bit closer. It's really tough to win twice against the same team twice in a season. And I would point out the last time these two teams met in a Pac-12 title game, Oregon beat the brakes off of a Utah team that had a chance to go play for the college football playoff had they won that day. But give me Utah here. There's just something a little bit off about this Oregon team this year. So give me the Utes here, -3.
Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, 77% also saw Utah win the game against Oregon a couple weeks ago, and they assumed the same thing is going to happen again. So they're on the side of the Utes there on that. This is maybe only interesting to me, but I think a lot of people, probably myself included, kind of think of Oregon as being the way better program than Utah, but the actual overall numbers over the course of the last 30 games don't necessarily scream that. Straight up, Oregon is 24-6. Utah just 2 games worse at 22-8. I was a little surprised by that. Over the course of the last 30, Utah actually has a better record against the spread, 16-14, whereas Oregon is dead even right down the middle, 15 up, 15 down. However, I think it is way too easy to rubber stamp Utah on the basis of what happened a couple of weeks ago when they played. First of all, Oregon's won 2 consecutive Pac-12 title games. This is a spot in which they're comfortable, including, as Connor mentioned, a head-to-head win against Utah 2 seasons ago. But also, here's the other thing that matters. Utah's one of these teams that just plays way better at home than it plays other places. This year, losses away from home to BYU, San Diego State, Oregon State. Last full season of college football in 2019, loss at USC, loss in the Pac-12 title game. Over the course of the last 3 years, a total of 7 losses for Utah in games not played at Rice-Eccles Stadium. That's enough for me to take the flyer here on Oregon, a team that's very comfortable winning in Pac-12 title game scenarios. So I'll take the Ducks plus the points here. Flow, though, heavily on the side of Utah. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take Utah?
No, and no flyer here. Oregon's going to win this game.
I think so too.
It's payback time. Yes, it's payback time. Everything went wrong. I watched that whole game. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. Missed field goals, penalties, special teams issues, and it was an avalanche-type game, almost like the Georgia-Arkansas game that snowballed, got out of hand quick. They were jacked up at night, home game for Utah. This game's still going to be a shootout, but I think Oregon's going to redeem themselves. I expect Cristobal to challenge that team, and this is personal. These guys and all this talent on Oregon is going to take this personal. You are going to see it on that field. They're going to get a victory.
Yeah, I like Dari's pick on that. I think that's the right side to be on there. Let's stay out west here and look at the Mountain West Conference Championship game. This one's set for Saturday. Fox TV, the spot for this. As the pride of Logan, Utah, the Aggies of Utah State take on the top 25 ranked San Diego State Aztecs. Of course, San Diego State 11-1 on the year. Utah State, no slouch though here at 9-3. The number here in this one for Saturday sees San Diego State as a 5.5-point favorite there in that spot. Mountain West title game. Mike Griffith, what do you think?
Yeah, Brady Hoke, Mountain West Coach of the Year. It's the second time he's done it. He did it in 2010 as well. And then he went on to have some success at Michigan and obviously a very short tenure at Tennessee. He did not fare well as the interim head coach at the end of the year. This San Diego State team has impressed me all year, Brandon. You know that? They really have. It's the first time excuse me, they're going for their third Mountain West championship since 2016. That would be impressive. Utah State has never even won a conference title. I've got to go with San Diego State in this game and Brady Hoke.
So, Mike, on the side of the Aztecs, what do you think, Jeff Sintel?
I think this might be a paint dry type watching game. Lots of great defensive performances everywhere. I don't know if the combined over under in this thing might get to 30 points. The Fighting Brady Hokes, we know, led by their quarterback Lucas Johnson. Give me the Aztecs, and I will resist the urge to talk about how splendid the San Diego State uniforms are.
So you like the uniforms? That's kind of a cool take. I never really thought much about them, but I guess they are kind of a nice uniform.
Cool.
Obviously, on the back of Marshall Faulk, they can certainly look very good. Connor Riley, what do you think? A lot of love for SDSU right now.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about San Diego State's best player, and that's their punter. He routinely bombs 70-yard punts there. He's probably the best player they've had since Marshall Faulk. Looking at this Utah State team, yes, they get to 9-3. They come from the weaker conference there in the Pac-12, or excuse me, in the Mountain West. You know, might not be that big of a difference between those two conferences this year. And Utah State did beat Washington State earlier this season. But I like San Diego State here. I think this team knows what it is. It knows what's to play. This spread's a little big. I do worry about that. I could see San Diego State playing a closer game, but give me the Aztecs here, -5.5.
Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, 62% on the side of San Diego State. Kind of impressed by that number next to the name. I won't pretend to have a ton on this game. I mean, I have seen San Diego State put impressive performances together for the most part week after week this season, but I'm actually going to go against them in this spot. As Connor said, it's a sizable enough number that it's worth paying close attention to the underdog, and Utah State's actually 8-4 against the spread thus far this season. By comparison, Aztecs just 6-5-1 against the number so far in the campaign. That doesn't guarantee anything, but in a game like this where there's a pretty sizable number to kind of get underneath, a team in the Aggies that have been good against the spread thus far this season, that's worth taking a flyer on, I believe. So I'll take Utah State, but the flow on the side of the ranked San Diego State team. Dari Payne, will go with the flow and take San Diego State.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the flow. I'm going to take the Aztecs. They're the more battle-tested, better team. They've won 13 of their previous 15 against the Utah State Aggies. So all-time record, they own them. I think they're going to get it done in this game.
Turn our attention now to a much bigger game, playoff implications for a Michigan team that got the win last Saturday. Obviously, dramatic rivalry win in impressive fashion against Ohio State. Now turn their attention back to an Iowa team that has dealt with its share of injuries and seems to be getting a little healthier here, but also just finds itself one of the most inept offensive teams in the country. But listen, they don't ask you how, they ask you how many, and Iowa's gotten enough wins to be in this spot against Michigan in the Big Ten championship game for Saturday. 11-1 Michigan, 10-2 are the Iowa Hawkeyes. Number, though, big. Hawkeyes also a 10.5-point underdog here in this spot. So, Mike Griffith, what do you think about Michigan and Iowa?
Yeah, a game at Lucas Oil Stadium, pretty slick place to see a football game. Been there for a few Big Ten title games.
You've reached your pun quota. I gave you credit for the first one, but I'm going to go ahead and say you've reached the pun quota now.
We're going to be using it again when George is there in the national championship game. But I was won 5 out of the last 7 times they played Michigan. Kirk Ferentz kind of has a Jim Harbaugh number thing going there. The last 3 times these teams have met, they've been 1-score games. Brandon, everybody knows that. I'm not going to pretend to know much more than that. What I do know is that Michigan's 10-2 against the spread this year. Iowa's quarterback situation a little iffy. I've seen Iowa play in a Big Ten championship game before and find a way to lose. I'm going to take Michigan and lay that 10.5-point spread because Big Blue is rolling.
Big Blue is rolling, says Mike Griffith. Jeff Sintel, do you agree?
I think Big Blue might be hungover, and I think that's a great way to describe Ann Arbor the last couple of days. I know this. Iowa and Michigan have played 2 times of late in the last 4 or 5 years. I think the combined point total is about 40 points in all of those football games. So I think that 10.5 is scary. I'm going to take Iowa and take those 10.5 points. I think it'll be a hard-fought game. I'm actually rooting for anarchy here in college football, so Michigan would take the loss here. But I do think Iowa will keep it close, and I think they will be close enough within that number. So give me the Hawkeyes.
So split decision here on the Big Ten title game, at least as the spread is concerned. Connor Riley, how about for you? What do you think about the Big Ten championship?
I think Iowa's going to try and muddy this game up, make it as ugly as possible. And because of that, I think they're going to be able to keep it close. I don't think they're going to be able to run. Michigan is going to be able to run on Iowa the same way it was on Ohio State a week ago. And while I do think Michigan wins this week, 10.5 is just a little rich for my blood. So give me Iowa plus 10.5 here.
Yeah, Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers impressed by what they saw last week against the Ohio State Buckeyes. So 71% here do like Michigan here in this spot, but I'm going to take Iowa there as well. And some of this is related to what Jeff said a moment ago about big hangover from big rivalry win. Iowa's terrible offensively, but Michigan's not exactly one of these teams going to score 100 points on you necessarily either. And the lower the point total, the easier a 10.5 point spread kind of comes into play is. I feel like one of these conference championship games outside the SEC championship is probably destined to have at least a little bit of drama to it. I would be shocked if Michigan lost, but 10.5 is a big enough number that you can consider the underdog covering and yet still losing. So I'm actually going to go in the direction of Iowa here. I wouldn't bet this game. I don't feel good enough about it to say that, but for our contest here, I think Iowa plus the points is the play. Flow, though, on the side of Michigan. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Wolverines?
Yeah, I'm going to take Big Blue. I think their defense continues their momentum from last week. I think it carries over into this game. I am predicting a Michigan defensive touchdown in this game.
Wow.
I think they easily cover this 10.5 points.
The other game that has playoff implications among Power 5 conference title games is in the Big 12, where Baylor takes on Oklahoma State. Of course, Oklahoma State in this spot by virtue of the win against Oklahoma a week ago, and Baylor, of course, in this spot there as well. Cowboys here 5.5 point favorite in the Big 12 title game. Mike Griffith, what do you think about Cowboys and Bears?
Yeah, this was a game Oklahoma State won it earlier decisively. I just have a lot of respect for Dave Aranda and Baylor. And, sometimes it's about knowing how to handle the moment. And I'm just not sure that Oklahoma State knows how to handle the moment. So I'm going to go with Baylor in this football game.
I should correct myself on one thing. Oklahoma State had long since clinched a spot in the Big 12 title game. The Oklahoma loss actually is what opened up the spot for Baylor a week ago. So Mike Griffith, not sure about Oklahoma State in the big game, but he does like the long-standing tradition of Baylor's performances in big games. Of course, I kid when I say that. But
actually, Brandon, they're 12-2 against the spread in their last 14 games in December. So they have played well at the end of the year.
Well, there you go. Jeff Sintel, what do you think about Oklahoma State and Baylor?
No need to go paralysis by analysis here on this one. I like Baylor. I like the comfiness, the coziness of that 5.5 number. I think Dave Aranda does marvelous things with his schemes and schematics. So I'm going to go on this side of Baylor in this one. Still think Oklahoma State's going to win this. I think it'd be a close, hard-fought, well-fought game. So
a little bit of love against the spread for Dave Aranda's charges here. Connor Raleigh, you want to join in on that?
I love Dave Aranda more than anyone here on this panel, and I'm taking Oklahoma State this week. I don't think Baylor's offense is going to be able to do enough to keep this game close. This Oklahoma State defense, you might look at the game last week and see they gave up 33 points. Oklahoma's offense scored 0 in the second half last week against the Pokes there. I know that game was at home. This game's going to be in Arlington. Oklahoma State is playing for a playoff spot. I think they know they can go out and they have to, I think, make a statement in this game just to answer any and all doubts that might exist out there. So give me Oklahoma State here minus 5.5 to try and make a very strong college football playoff case.
66% of Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers on the side of Oklahoma State there as well. And I got to tell you, total honesty here, my pick in this game is going to end up being a little bit different than I thought it was going to be earlier in the week. I think Mike mentioned this about being a little skeptical of Oklahoma State salting away a playoff spot. I've been maybe somewhat skeptical of that there as well. But like the one thing I can't quite get over is how much the numbers in this spot argue for the Cowboys. Now, Baylor has not been bad against the spread this season. They're 8-4 against the number. But Oklahoma State is 9-2-1. And furthermore, it was a push last week against Oklahoma. Prior to that, Oklahoma State had covered 9 consecutive games against the spread. And that's made it even more amazing with the fact that over the course of time, the sports books are trying to catch up with the Cowboys there a little bit, and they've exceeded expectations week in, week out. In a battle of wits, do I think that Mike Gundy is a better coach than Dave Aranda? I'm not quite so sure that I think that he is. But something about whatever's happening there in Stillwater is working thus far this season. And when you look deep in a game like this, sometimes you're surprised with what you see. And I think there is an argument for Oklahoma State here that's a lot stronger than I assumed it probably would be. So I'm actually on the side of Oklahoma State here, and by a wide margin, the flow is on the side of Oklahoma State there. Actually, it's not a wide margin, but it is the flow on the side of Oklahoma State. Nonetheless, Daria, you want to go with the flow and take the Cowboys?
No, I like Baylor here. I think they have a chance to win this game outright. It'll be a close game down to the wire. I think it's going to be very close throughout this whole game. I think Dave Aranda is going to have a really good defensive game plan for him.
So that is the story in the Big 12. We'll now head to the Group of 5 here in the Mid-American Conference Championship game as Northern Illinois takes on the Golden Flashes of Kent State. And Kent State finds himself a 3-point favorite here in this spot. Mike, you've spent a lot of time in Middle America. Don't know how much Maction you've watched, but nonetheless, what do you think about Kent State and Northern Illinois?
Well, the game's being played at Ford Field in Detroit, and I've been there a few times, to your point. Kent State was able to win earlier this year against Northern Illinois by a 52-47 count. It was the first time that they beat the Huskies since 2001. It's been a long time. They were excited. They called up Nick Saban and said, "Hey, Nick, remember us?" I'm going to go with Northern Illinois, though, because I like the payback. I like the revenge factor. And I just think the Huskies are going to play well in Detroit.
So that is Mike Griffith on the side of Northern Illinois, who got a signature win earlier this season against Georgia Tech, if you can call it that. And they'll look to complete the cycle with a conference championship win on Saturday. Maction for Jeff Sintel, Northern Illinois, Kent State. The number is 3 in favor of the Golden Flashes.
So, guys, there's not a go with the flow bylaw or precedent for this one, but there should be. Any team that beats Georgia Tech in the season opener by 1 point and then goes out to get drilled by teams like Wyoming and Michigan later on in the season, I can't pick them in this championship game. I like Kent State. I like the Golden Flashes with all their offense. I'm going to take Kent State in this one to go 2-0 against Northern Illinois this year.
Okay, there you go. Connor Riley, what do you think?
I don't know a dang thing about this game other than the fact that Northern Illinois beat Georgia Tech earlier this year, and that's enough for me. So give me Northern Illinois +3 here in this spot.
Yeah, both these teams, by the way, Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers may be impressed by the Northern Illinois win. They're on the side of the Huskies here. 58% do take Northern Illinois. Tale of 2 good offenses, 2 bad defenses. If you want to look at the ranks among the Mid-American Conference foes here, Kent State's 2nd in points per game. Northern Illinois finds themselves 3rd in that same category. Kent State averaging 33.4 points per game. Northern Illinois 30.8. But 2 bad defenses. They're 10th and 11th in that category in a points per game standing respectively there. So in a situation like this, I don't have a reason not to go on the side of the favorite, so I'm going to do that. I'll take Kent State -3, take a flyer on that. And that's just kind of the story for me on that. No strong argument for Kent State, but that is my pick. That puts the flow on the side of actually Northern Illinois, Husky. And boy, that's quite a statement to make here this late in the season. But the flow on the side of the Huskies, Dar, you want to go with the flow?
You know, the line's interested in this game with Kent State being favored because they're only, like Mike said, but it's only they've won 1 in 10 out of their last 11 games against Northern Illinois, which was earlier this season. A key stat here, you know, Northern Illinois is 0-7 against their spread in the last 7 games played in December. However, even with that stat, I'm going to take Northern Illinois because they have Rocky Lombardi, former Michigan State quarterback. This guy's a baller. I think he's going to be a difference, have a big game, and get the win here.
Certainly a great name to be sure, and a name to watch as you head towards that Mid-American Conference title game.
Great name, and what's even crazier is his great-grandfather is Vince Lombardi.
Boy, that's very impressive.
But not the Vince Lombardi, just not the Packers coach.
No, but his name, to say, surely I would have heard this by now if Vince Lombardi's grandson was playing college football, but I was willing to go with that.
It's a different Vince Lombardi.
Yeah, that's how easy I am to be swayed, I guess, from time to time. We'll turn our attention to another Group of 5 conference title game. This one should be a fun one there as well, as the Ragin' Cajuns of Louisiana in the final game for the Billy Napier era before he becomes Florida coach after the game is done. Get ready to take on the Mountaineers of Appalachian State. Sun Belt title game with Louisiana as a 3-point underdog to the Mountaineers in this spot, despite the fact that Louisiana has been pretty well a fixture in the top 25 for a lot this year. So it's App State, it's Louisiana, it's the conclusion of the Napier run there in Louisiana. What do you think about this one, Mike Griffith?
Well, just to clear up the Rocky Lombardi drama, he's actually named after Rocky Blyer, and he's from Des Moines, Iowa. The Hawkeyes would have done well. He does come from a coaching family, though. I don't know if you know this or not, but his great-grandfather was a college coach. His grandfather, Bob, is in the Illinois High School Coaches Hall of Fame. His nickname was Sunshine in high school, and he was a wrestler. So all you wanted to know about Rocky Lombardi and more. I took a hard look at this Appalachian State, Louisiana game taking place at Cajun Field down there in Lafayette, Louisiana. I've been down there once before. It's a very interesting place. With Billy Napier taking this job, the latest former Nick Saban coach, I'm just not quite sure how Louisiana will respond. I know they did beat Appalachian State 41-13 earlier this year, but App State, it's a proud program. I'm going to take App State to win this game and cover the spread. I just feel like there could be some distractions down there in the Tabasco region of the state of Louisiana.
So, Jeff Sintel, what do you think? Mike on the side of Louisiana? Oh, no, what'd you say, Mike? After all that Rocky Lombardi stuff, I kind of lost my...
Now you know how we feel when you start giving out all those numbers, Brandon. I'm going to go with Appalachian State.
All right, Mike, what do you think? I'm sorry, Jeff, what do you think? Louisiana, Lafayette, Appalachian State.
I guess I want to start the narrative going that things were always so much better for Billy Napier when he was coaching in Louisiana. Give me Louisiana, Lafayette in this one.
Connor Riley, what do you think?
The general principle game. Louisiana is ranked. They are at home. And yet Vegas still sees them as an underdog. Take App State here, minus the points.
Yeah, I got to admit something here. I have no idea why Appalachian State's favored. That's not to say they're a bad team here. I have no idea about that. I mean, Louisiana just crushed Liberty, beat them 42-14. That's a pretty big win. Now, Louisiana did play terribly at the beginning of the season against Texas. That's obviously not a very good win. And frankly, playing close against Louisiana Monroe is not all that impressive. But, it is tough to argue for why Appalachian State is the favorite here. Now, Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, they don't like Billy Napier already, so you got 67% on the side of Appalachian State. A little slow to catch up on this. But I got to take App State for the same reason. When I'm looking at the two resumes, including the fact that Louisiana really blew out Appalachian State earlier this season, the fact that's not enough to earn them a point spread favorite situation here with the game in Lafayette on Saturday, I got to pick it blind. I really don't know what the argument is for Appalachian State, but there must be one. So therefore, that's the side that I'm going to be on because pretty much everything else kind of screams Louisiana. So somebody knows something here, and it's clearly not me. So I'll take the Mountaineers as well. That puts the flow on the side of the apps. You want to go with the flow here, Dari Payro?
This is probably the only game of the week on our slate that is I've kind of gone back and forth on. App State is actually a pretty good team. I think they're a little underrated. They have 8 or 10 guys that are starters that are 6-year COVID exemption players. So you have some grown men out there, a little bigger, a little stronger. You got the distraction with Napier, but I just think them playing at home is going to be enough for them to get the victory here. So I'm going to take the Raging Cajuns plus the points.
So should be a fun game there in the Sun Belt and the final game of the Napier era. We'll turn our attention to another game that has college football playoff implications. This one out of the American Athletic Conference as the undefeated Cincinnati Bearcats ranked number 4. Once again, the most recent college football playoff top 25. Get ready to take on another team now in the top 25, the Cougars of Houston. Cincinnati is a 10.5-point favorite there in this spot. Mike Griffith, what do you think about this one?
I ran into Luke Fickell this summer while on vacation down at Discovery Cove in Orlando, and he had the look of a champion. They're one game away right now, and although there's some speculation that Luke might take the Notre Dame job, he said there is no speculation. He said, is the job open? I guess it is, but I wouldn't know if somebody didn't tell me. It's the same way I am with the rankings. It's the same way I am with, unfortunately, a lot of other things, with the exception of recruiting. I don't pay a whole lot of attention otherwise. The game is being played in Cincinnati, Brandon. The temperatures are not expected to be any higher than 49 degrees. That's a factor. That's going to help Cincinnati in this game. The last 2 games, the Bearcats have won by an aggregate 76-33. So this point spread does not scare me. I'm all in on Luke Fickell and the Bearcats. Give me Cincinnati and give the Cougars those 10.5 points.
What do you think, Jeff Sintel? Does historic Nippert Stadium see an undefeated campaign added to by the Bearcats on Saturday? The number is 10.5.
I was I was just poised to pick Houston in this one and see all those points. But then Mike tells me about the look of a champion. The look of a champion. Mike could be selling me a BMW or a used car right now with that one. Oh, we're talking about Mike with the looks of the champion. Of course, I'm trying to make good pick theater here. Really what I think is the team with more on the line, team with better players, the team that has beaten a better opponent. All those checks go to Cincinnati. Home field, cold weather, physical football team, auditioning for the Notre Dame job, which is probably already his. All these reasons lead me to believe that I'm going to take Cincinnati in this one despite the number.
So a little bit of love for the Bearcats here. They obviously know what's in front of them. Connor Raleigh, do you agree with that?
First of all, I'm not picking somebody that makes millions of dollars a year and chooses to vacation in Orlando. That's a red flag for me right there. Houston, 11 winners of 11 straight. And obviously they're not quite as impressive as Cincinnati, but I think this is a tough team. Dana Holgorsen has been building this team over years to get to this point. And Cincinnati has shown from time to time over the back half of the season, maybe they played at a level of the competition. You saw them do it against SMU. I believe they ended up covering it against Darius ECU Pirates last week, but I watched a little bit of that game. And it was not exactly the most impressive display from Cincinnati there. So give me Houston that 10.5. That hook is a real difference maker, I think, in this game. I think Cincinnati is going to find a way to win, but give me Houston with the points.
Yeah, one of those things, Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, they've kind of been won over by Cincinnati here. 61% do like a minus the 10.5, but I just can't quite get over the week-to-week, stuck in the mud the way that Cincinnati kind of seems to be from time to time. Think about Navy game, going back to October 23rd. That's just 27-20 victory. Think about, the Tulane game, probably closer than it should have been for a while. 31-12 ends up being the final. Certainly 28-20 against Tulsa is not going to impress anybody. 45-28 against UCF wasn't a thing of beauty. Showed up a little bit, flexed a little bit against SMU the other day, 48-14. So maybe you can say, hey, Cincinnati has been ready for the biggest and best teams that it's played at Notre Dame and SMU. Maybe that's the case here for the Houston game there as well. I just can't quite be so sure about that. For now, I'm just more comfortable going against Cincinnati here, minus the 10.5, being on the side of Houston here in that spot. If it goes the other way, then you can say, as I said a moment ago, that truly Bearcats just found a way to show up against the best teams that played. But for now, I'll take Houston plus the points here. That, though, the flow on the side of Cincinnati, though, Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the undefeated Bearcats?
No, I'm going to take Houston here. Houston's defense is pretty legit. I think it's going to be hard for Cincy to cover the double-digit spread. I think even the weather, even though it's kind of the home field for Cincy, I think that just tends to be more of a defensive type game. I was at the game for the ECU Cincy game, and East Carolina won, all like 3/4 of that game. They gave up 21 points in like 4 minutes. Based on some blown coverages and some bad play. But ECU was also first and goal inside the 5 2 times that they came away with 0 points, and they gave up a special teams touchdown with a block kick return for a touchdown to Cincy. Other than that, besides ECU's own errors, they probably could have won that game. Cincinnati's offense did virtually nothing in the second half except throwing 2 picks against ECU's defense, which isn't ranked that high. So I think Houston's going to be able to hang in this game and cover that 10.5 point spread.
We'll finish with Georgia and Alabama one more time with a look at that and the expected point total for the Dogs and the Crimson Tide. That's to close things out. Before that, though, one more conference title game to look at. It is in the Power 5, and it's on Saturday night, 8 p.m. Pitt and Wake Forest, identical records, both coming in at 10-2. Both find themselves in the top 20 of the college football playoff, top 25 there as well. And obviously, a high-powered, high-scoring game is expected here. We're not picking the point total, but if you're curious, 72.5 is the over-under for Pitt and Wake. 2 really good quarterbacks, 2 very explosive offenses. Point spread's what matters to us, though. In this particular spot, we see Pitt as a 3-point favorite against Wake Forest. Mike Griffith, give us your thoughts on Pitt and Wake.
Yeah, I'll share some thoughts. So Pat Narduzzi really cut his teeth as a defensive coach. He played at Youngstown State, and then he transferred to Rhode Island after his father was fired. Back in the day, Miami of Ohio used to scrimmage against Miami, Florida. And when Narduzzi was at Miami of Ohio, he was able to pick up this 4-3 cover 4 concept. When the Miami of Ohio and Miami of Florida coaches were talking, this was a concept that was developed by none other than Tommy Tuberville back on the Jimmy Johnson staff. Now, obviously, times have changed, but you'll still see some of that cover 4 against Dave Clawson and what we call the Clawfence. Clawson was actually on the final Tennessee staff with Philip Fulmer before Fulmer was fired. And part of the problem was Clawson had a scheme where the offensive tackles would flip-flop depending on the play call. And unfortunately, a lot of the players, they had a lot of veteran linemen, they didn't buy into that too much, and they didn't block with a whole lot of effort or a whole lot of enthusiasm. Arian Foster was the running back at the time, and he kind of went sideways on the staff. And when you lose your best player's confidence, the team loses confidence in the scheme. And so the Clawfence was not successful at Tennessee, and therefore they've got fired. So here we are, 14 years later, and now Dave Clawson has done an outstanding job with the Demon Deacons at building a program. And Pat Narduzzi's having a wonderful year, not only with all that defensive background, but with Kenny Pickett, the quarterback. This is an intriguing game. I can't wait to see it. The Panthers 5-0 straight up against the spread away from Heinz Field. Don't think they're going to be in a position to play catch up. I'm going to take Pitt and give Wake Forest 3 points.
I'm assuming the catch-up thing there after that long diatribe was also a tie-in back to Heinz Field there. So credit to Mike Griffith for that. Jeff Sentell, what do you think?
It looks like Connor is actually napping or at least relaxing underneath the blanket on his pick, so I'm going to wake him up really quickly. Kenny Pickett, he has 40 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. They say he's an NFL quarterback playing in college. Dabo Sweeney calls him special. Brent Venables calls him Joe Burrow. This is a Heisman stage for him. I like the way Pitt has performed against a lot of common opponent theory here with Wake Forest. On principle, give me Pitt. I'll lay that number. Give me Pitt.
A little bit of love for Pitt here right now, Connor Riley. Can I wake you from your slumber to make your selection?
Sorry, I fell asleep about a quarter of the way into Mike's history lesson there. I didn't hear what Jeff said. I was still knocked out from what Mike's long rant there about Dave Clawson and what he did at Tennessee 14 years ago. Pitt gets after the quarterback. Kenny Pickett is the better quarterback in this game. Wake's had a great season. Pitt's going to win this game. I think, by 2 touchdowns. Give me the Panthers here.
Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers by a narrow margin do like Pitt. They got 51% on the side of the Panthers. That's about as close as it's going to get for our audience. And I got to tell you, I'm going to take a little bit of a flyer here on Wake Forest, and I may or may not have a good reason for doing so. But when you look at Wake, who a couple of weeks ago kind of got pushed around a little bit by a Clemson team that's getting healthier and kind of finding itself again, they're back in the top 20. And maybe you thought, well, that's kind of it there for Wake Forest in that spot. They actually went on the road last week against maybe a better than you think Boston College team, certainly playing in Chestnut Hill, not an easy thing to do. They won that game 41-10. So, it's not really been smoke and mirrors, at least on the offensive side for Wake here this year. And listen, what they did the week after losing to Clemson may not be a great argument for taking them in the game. I certainly acknowledge that. But it's enough to impress me. Both teams kind of scoring a bunch of points. But Wake kind of showed me something last week. And so I'm going to be on the side of Wake Forest here. However, the flow is on the side of Pitt, pretty decidedly so. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Panthers?
Yeah, I couldn't tell if Connor was sleeping or if his furnace broke down. He was wrapping himself up in a blanket. Looks like he was also shaking a bit there, a little twitchy. I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks in this game. I like Pitt a lot, for all the reasons everyone said. Kenny Pickett's a stud. I think this will be a statistic show that he puts on.
Of course, if your furnace were to break down or if your water heater would go out, in many cases, RS Andrews can replace it for you the same day. You just need to find them online at rsandrews.com. They're the ones that bring and go with the flow to us each and every week here on the Dog Nation video channels. Our buddy Dari Payro knows a lot about picking games, but he and all the folks over there at RS Andrews know a whole lot more about putting smiles on your faces. Story after story, that's what they do because Their techs show up on time. They're clean. They're well trained. They're well screened. They're just ready to do everything that you need them to do for the work that's promised, the price that's promised each and every day. That's what RS Andrews can do for you. You can find them online at rsandrews.com for a lot more on that. Much lower point total for the SEC championship between Georgia and Alabama. Let's finish, though, with the Dogs and the Crimson Tide. It is set at 50. Even number there on that. Mike Griffith, what do you think?
Yeah, Kirby Smart saying, show me the money. All these coaching changes, and Kirby is going to cash in probably to the tune of $110 to $120 million guaranteed. Kirby Smart and his great defenses and interesting offenses. You know, Tennessee got inside the Georgia 30-yard line 6 times. They only scored 17 points because they're not very good. I don't know that Alabama's that much better, particularly with this shaky offensive line. But they have a couple of pretty scary receivers. So I'm going to say the Tide's going to score around 24. And I said earlier in the program that I felt like Georgia was going to cover the spread. You know, Stetson Bennett, the mailman, with the play action game, the ability to scramble around, going head-to-head against Bryce Young, going to show you some of those moves from South Georgia. I'm going to take the over and Kirby Smart to score a lot of points and make a lot of money by beating Alabama convincingly by about a 34-24 count.
Jeff Sintel, what do you think? The number is 50.
Yeah, as stated earlier, my pick on the over-under regarding Georgia this week is the kiss of death for a lot of things. You know, logic would have me to believe that this is sort of like a 28-20 type game or 27-17 type game. But that guy's missed a lot of over-unders on Georgia this year. That's why I sit there and I think no running back. Folks got to remember only one scholarship running back. Well, Bryce Young is considerably the running back for Alabama in this one. A lot of those plays that the Tennessee quarterback extended and made some life on, I think he'll be able to do the same. That's why, in a nutshell, I'm going to predict this game to go over.
A couple of overs thus far. Connor Riley, you agree with that?
Absolutely not. I love the under here. I think the only way Alabama wins this game and a team has a chance of beating Georgia, we saw Clemson do it, really muck the game up, keep it a low-scoring affair, or at least, you know, have your defense have success there against Georgia. So give me the under here in this game. I regret not taking the under last week. Georgia in the under has been a winning play more often than not this season, and so I'm going to ride with the under here.
Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, they do agree. 64% on the side of the under there in that spot, and obviously I've cashed in the Georgia under a good number of times over the last few weeks, but I'm going to go the opposite direction here on Saturday because I think it takes points to win this game. Now, the last time I said that was the Clemson game, and I ended up being wrong on both accounts. Georgia won the game without scoring a ton of points. It was obviously a defensive fest, but I feel like this game on Saturday is going to be won by a team that finds its way into the 30s. That means you're going over the 50 here in this spot, certainly if it's a Georgia win here from that scenario. So under's been a pretty easy rocking chair cover as of late for the Dogs, but in this particular case, I'm gonna like the over to hit here in this spot. However, the flow on the side of the under. Darty, you want to go with the flow and take the under?
The under, yes.
I'm sorry, yeah. The under's what's.
Yeah, I'm not going with the flow, which is probably on the over. I'm taking the under. You know, I think the defense is gonna, rise up, for Georgia here, and I think it's gonna lead to a slow simmer, crock pot style Georgia victory that's gonna start off slow, and it's just the meat's just gonna fall off by the end of that fourth quarter. And when you look at that score, it's gonna be a pretty large margin of victory. The numbers going under. If you look at the over/unders for Georgia, over this season, this is one of their lowest over/under points in like a month, and they're going against one of the best offenses they're facing. Yeah. So what does that tell you? That tells you this is going under.
Should be very interesting to see. Big week of conference championship games. Great picks there by Dari Payro, the entire Dog Nation team, and of course all of you joining us here with your own picks there as well. Of course, we appreciate those there too. So here's how it's going to go for us. We'll take a little bit of a break while the bowl season gets ready to get started. We'll come back and we'll make more picks as we head into what we hope for Georgia's trip to the college football playoff, certainly expected to be. Some of those other big games around that time there as well. We'll be back with more bowl picks for you then. But for now, thanks for being with us all season long throughout the regular season. here for Go With The Flow right now, presented by R.S. Andrews. Good luck with your own picks, and if you're a Georgia fan, certainly good luck to the Dogs there on Saturday there as well, and we'll see how the college football playoff shapes up, how the rest of the bowl season looks. We'll have more picks for you coming soon in the weeks to come. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks for being here on Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews, and we'll look forward to talking to you again very soon.